up, y'all boys? Woo! All right, y'all. As y'all can see, we in a different setting and everything like that. Today we will be having girl chat, chatty chat, whatever you want to call it, uncut, uncut, raw conversations with y'all. So today what we're going to be talking about, there's a couple different topics that I can think of. The conversation we're going to be having today is basically, I'm going to tell you about my Christian walk, and I hate using the word Christian walk or using the word Christian. I'm going to talk about my relationship with God, and I'm also going to talk about like how it was impacted, like coming to college, coming to the #1 public HBCU there is, like, and navigating all that stuff, like figuring that whole thing out. Oh, this is not a good chair. All right. So first things first, I was raised in a Haitian household. My mom was originally Catholic when, I don't know if y'all can hear me over that thing. It is kind of loud. I don't know if y'all can hear me, but my mom was raised Catholic. I believe my dad's entire family was raised Catholic as well. My aunt is Catholic. My mom's mother was Catholic. My grandma was Catholic. So for the most part, everyone in our proximity was raised Catholic. But when my mom married my father, she converted into Seventh-day Adventism as well as my dad. So my dad kind of introduced everyone to Seventh-day Adventism, and essentially because my parents were married and they had us, we grew up in that as well. So as far as I'm concerned, when I was a little jitterbug and I was growing up, I didn't really understand what Seventh-day Adventist was. All I knew was that we went to church on Saturday, we didn't wear jewelry, we couldn't get piercings, and we couldn't get tattoos. That's all I knew, and I didn't really know the reason why or anything like that, and I never really understood it. So it was, I remember, I think I was probably 12, maybe 14. I wanted to get baptized. I felt at the time, let me say that, I felt at the time, I was so on fire for Jesus. I was that man, we locked in. And they used to call me Mother Teresa at school. It was that deep. I was praying for people. I was laying hands on people. I was praying for people at the schoolhouse. At our school, I went to Lake Marion Creek, and we have a coach there. His name is Coach Martell. He basically fellowshipped with my brother. He has this organization called BTP, and what does it stand for? Break the Pattern. I'm tripping. It stands for Break the Pattern, and it's essentially fellowshipping with young youth, mostly males, because males were the ones who played basketball at the time. So he fellowshiped to them. He also not converted, but he kind of constituted it to the point where he was able to fellowship with those children or those youth, those young boys, and also give them the word of God at the same time. So that became a whole movement. My brother was a part of it as well. And I remember there was this day that we had a moment of silence for, there was a shooting that happened. I think we stayed quiet for 1 minute and 17 seconds. Or it might have been 4 minutes. I can't remember. There was a couple of people that passed away, and we stood in silence for that amount of time. And then I think it was either me, they asked me to pray, or they asked my brother to pray. It was one of us. I can't remember, but that was kind of the dynamic at school, the dynamic at home. It was Uvi Saba, on that Friday night, when the sun is going down, no TV, no more food at that time. We had to Uvi Saba, bringing in the Sabbath day. So we're praying, we're fasting, we're singing hymns, whatever you want to call it. And that goes all the way into Saturday. So we break the fast after church, we have our food, and we still don't use any electronics or anything like that until after sundown. So that was mainly my life for a really, really long time. And getting into high school, mind you, me and my older brother played sports. It was just me and him. And at the time, mind you, he paved the way for me. He crawled on his arms and legs so I can run, literally. So at the time, my brother, he went to a different school. He went to Discovery, and he was pursuing his dream of basketball. Now, him and his best friend Bentley, like, we all, like, basically all the friends that I had growing up, I met everyone through church. So my friends, or my family at the time, like, we all grew up in the same, like, we came with the same struggles, like having our really strict parents, and they won't let us do anything on Saturdays. So say all that to say that on Saturdays, that's when he used to have his tournaments, or, you know, he was doing AAU at the time as well. So anytime he had a game, it happened to fall on a Saturday. So he was just going back and forth with my dad, and he couldn't, like, sometimes he couldn't make it, and my mom would kind of like try to get him to let him go and stuff like that. And I don't want to speak too much on that because that's his story to tell, not mine. But essentially, like I said, he crawled so I could run. Like, when it came to me, like, my dad is not the same father that we knew growing up. Like, my dad, like, 10 out of 10, like, call him right now, like, that's my dog, like, you know. But back then it wasn't like that. Like, my dad was super strict. He was like a certified crash out, like, for real, like my dad would crash out about anything, any given thing my dad is crashing out about. So for us, that's kind of like what we grew up off of, and we were kind of like, okay, bro, like, calm down, like, what's your problem? Like, we couldn't do anything. Like, for me, I couldn't do it. I don't know if it's because it was the 7th day in him, or just the fact that I was a girl, but I couldn't do anything. Like, my friends that I grew up with, like, I couldn't even go to their birthday parties. I didn't go to my friend's first birthday party until I turned 18 and I graduated. Like, it was that deep. So for me, that's kind of like how it was. So back to the sports part. He couldn't do much on Saturdays, but my mom kind of, like, my dad eventually kind of, like, slowed it down because he realized that we were gonna do it anyway. So it's just like, just be there for us, so we can just, you know, when we have a falling back, you could be, you know, you can help us up. You don't want to let us fall. I mean, if we fall, you can allow us, you know. Okay, well, you learn from that. Let's see what you're gonna do next. So that was kind of like the aspect for us for a really, really long time. And eventually my brother ended up being able to pursue his career. I'm still pissed off that him and Bentley, I hope y'all watching this, y'all pissed me off because they didn't go to the league, and it really blew me. Like, they really just a waste of talent, man. Like, they were so, like, them separate, talent, them together, yo, done deal, okay? Them together, yo, like, y'all call the Splash Bros, what is it, Clay and Curry? Those two together, it's like a beast. Like, it was so amusing and entertaining to watch. Like, I remember I used to, like, I can't even say sneak out the house, but I used to sneak out the house to go watch their games. Like, my brother didn't want me to come to most of his games, but I still always found a way to go. Like, I remember this one time, it was his senior night, and we had, we're getting off track, but we went, and he was like, don't make a big deal, don't make a big deal. My son's senior night, what? I acted up that day, I'm not gonna hold you, but all this back to the real topic of this video, and basically just talking about my walk in Christ. When I was 14, something happened, and it, like, shook my faith. Like, I had lost somebody really close to me, and it shook my faith. Like, I was like, God, like, and at the time, like, I didn't really understand what was happening. Like, I didn't understand, like, how this whole thing with Christ worked for real. It was like, keep praying and God will keep giving. You know, that's just how I was. Like, I can't even say I was reading the Bible. I was just a praying type of person. But it's like, you can't have one without the other. You can't have prayer without the word and word without prayer. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, God, like, how could you do this? Like, I could say I rebelled against him, but I didn't at the same time. Like, I knew God was real, so I wouldn't dare, like, disrespect him. Like, you know how they say, like, in the Bible, like, Job did everything but disrespect God? Like, he brought his concerns to God, and so did Jesus when he was getting crucified on the cross, but he didn't dare, like, disrespect him. So that's just kind of how it was. for a really long time. And just being in that church that I went to, I'm not even gonna say the name of that church because they don't deserve it. But that church that I went to, it was like just full of such malicious and backhanded people. Like, they would talk all this foolery about you, but their kids could not be touched. And they don't even know half of what their kids were doing. And I was just like, what? But I thank God that me and my siblings, we was just out the way. Like, my family, Bet's family, like, we were just out the way. Like, we didn't really do much. We weren't like the center of attention, but for the most part, that's kind of like what the dynamic was. It was always like somebody faulting you for something. It was just like, what? That's like, it would be one thing if you're seeking wise counsel and it's kind of like, okay, well, we're having a conversation about like, you did this and let's see how we can fix that. But it's like, you're condemning and you're judging people when it's like, what my mom say? Like, your itch don't stink. Like, what? I never understood that. So COVID hit and we really stopped going to church, right? We, you couldn't go anyway, but we really stopped going to church. And I didn't go to church for like, even after COVID. When COVID kind of like was lifted, I started going to break the pattern again. Coach Martell started to have online sessions, and he also had sessions where you can go in person. And we used to go to the school so we can go and get the word of God and everything like that. And that's when I kind of opened, even though it was such a small thing, it opened my eyes to a certain amount of things where I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, this seems kind of like, okay, maybe I want to know a little bit more about this. Let me kind of like research it for yourself. And one thing that every pastor that I've been connected to, except for them Haitian ones, they always say like, you can get the word, but you need to go back in the word to make sure what I'm saying is correct. Like, I can give you the word all you want, but it's like, what if the whole time I'm saying a bunch of gibberish and it's literally nothing about, like, it does not state it in the Bible. So like, you have to do your own research. And another thing that I realized is somebody may interpret something one way, but when you're reading it, it speaks directly to you and you interpret it another way. So that was another thing that Coach Martell, he was like the breaking of like my pattern that I had. Oh wow, breaking of my pattern. That is hilarious. But fast forward, I'm graduating high school, and I'm graduating high school, and at the time, okay, I don't even talk about this for real, but long story short, I was supposed to go to LSU. I got a scholarship there. Long story short, I didn't end up going. That's another story for another time. I'll probably talk about it in like another video talking about like school and applications and stuff like that. But I didn't end up going to LSU, and I was just in this. I knew that school is where I was gonna be. Like, school, work are the only two things I know, because when I was growing up, one thing, l'église, l'école, la caille, that's it. That's all you got, right? So being in that constant movement of going to church and going to work and going home and going to school, like, I knew that I had to go to school. So I took a gap semester so I can work really, really, really hard, get enough money to go to school and send myself to school, right? So I sent myself to school. Hold on, y'all. Let's backtrack. Let's go back. During that summer, that gap summer that I had, I was trying to find a church home. So I went to a couple different churches. My best friend's mom, Zanaria's mom, Miss, what's her name? I call her Mama, y'all. I can't remember her name sometimes. Okay, that's not the point. I can't remember her name. Her name is Mama. But at the time, she was going to this church in Haines City, and I was like, okay, her son had passed away, and then that's when I remembered. She was like, oh, well, I was like, hey, Ma, I text her. I'm like, hey, Ma, I want to go to church. She said, you want to go to church? Like, I feel like a lot of people don't understand. I am a church baby. Like, I have never not been in church, or not, like, I've never not knew God. Like, I knew God in different senses. Let me just say it like that. Like, I knew who God was. I knew what he could do, but I didn't know who he was. I didn't know his true character. I knew what he could do. And in that church that I was going to back then, it was like, I know they taught me how to manipulate myself and God. But mind you, you can't manipulate God, but manipulate myself into thinking that I was doing something to get something in return for God. So like, let's say if they're like, oh, well, if you give this amount of money to the church, then God's going to do this. what? Are you serious? Like, imagine, like, they're telling you to do these things for their own gain. And that thing, it really shook me. Like, so I knew that when I was trying to find a church home, I was going to kind of like, I was gonna have to figure something out. So when I first started going to church, going back to church, I should say, my best friend's mom is the person who kind of like introduced me to her church, and I wasn't mad at it, but it was kind of like too slow for me. But yeah, so during that summer when I got my job, I had got an application. I was praying real hard about it. I finally got that email telling me like, hey, you know, you've been selected. I'm like, and of course, listen, I don't be shouting out a lot of people, but Nike, baby, I love you. Like, oh my gosh, Nike is the best company I've ever worked for. Okay, I love them hands down. And shout your girl out. Send her a PR. Thank you. But yeah, so I started working at Nike, and I feel like everything was placed strategically so I can get to where I am. Like, y'all, it's so crazy. But I started working at Nike, and I met this person. His name was Vern. I've talked about him in a lot of my videos. His name is Vernus, and he invited me to, so basically I was in the break room and I was reading my Bible in the break room, and he was like, is that your Bible? And I'm like, yes. And then that's when he kind of realized, okay, well, maybe she's about what she say for real. So I started from there. I started like during the time that I was supposed to be eating, I was fasting. I was reading my word instead. So it just depends on the day for the most part, but if I ate already, I'd probably just try to read the word after, or do it at the same time, or just not eat at all and just get in my word. So Vern ends up inviting me to his church. I meet his girlfriend. I meet his baby. It was a good time. It was a good time. I'm not gonna say his church was just not for me, because at the time all I ever knew was either a Catholic church or 7-Day Adventist church, 7-Day Haitian French SDA church at that. So I've never, and for all my Caribbean people, I'm not crazy. Like, it's like listening to worship music is cool, but listening to worship music and like doing louange in your native language is top tier. I don't care. It beats English every single time. Like, something about it, I don't know, it's just chef's kiss. So for me, when I was going to his church, I didn't know what shouting was. Now, mind you, one of my favorite verses is Genesis 3:15, right? Talking about how God is going to put enmity between the serpent, and the woman. And it talks about like bruised heels still crush serpents' heads and stuff like that. So I never really understood that until I talked to Vern one day, and he was like, like I said, one way that one person interprets something is not the same way that you're going to interpret it. So that verse spoke to me in a different way, but he essentially told me like, well, that's technically what shouting is. Like, shouting is basically you beating up the devil for real. So, but mind you, at my time, I'm thinking shouting is just when people start screaming. You know, like every Haitian funeral, just that one lady who just fall out, and you just like, oh, okay, you good? Like, so that's where I'm at. I'm like, what? Okay. So I go to his church, they shouting, they hooping, they hollering. I'm like, what? So at the time I went, it was this like youth night, basically. It was a sneaker night. And essentially they were like, what they call it? They called it rapture practice. And rapture practice was essentially, they were like, give God your biggest praise when I say rapture practice. And I'm like, I'm over here like, I'm like, what's going on? Like, what are they doing? I'm seeing people grabbing on the wall. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And mind you, before I went in to this Pentecostal church, I never knew what shouting was, speaking in tongues. I never understood that. Now, mind you, my brother likes to bring up this verse where they talk about how in when they were trying to build that stairway to heaven, and God essentially divides everyone and gives them all the different language for them to like speak. I was like, I don't think that's what he was talking about. But like, it talks about how you getting the power of tongues, or the gift of tongues, is one of the gifts that God ordains to people, and it's basically evidence that the Holy Spirit is upon you. Now, I would say it's one part, because there's many ways that the Holy Spirit can be upon you. I don't feel like I feel like it's, people say it's proof of the Holy Spirit, but I just feel like just the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of God, lives within everyone. You just have to you have to accentuate it. It's like the same way where girls got curves and they want to wear that real tight dress to like bow bow bow. It's the same way, like you have to live a lifestyle. You need to live a life. You need to live right for that Spirit of God to really show in your life, if that makes sense. So yeah, I never understood it until then. So I didn't go back to that church, y'all. I don't know. Like, for one, it's almost 2 hours from my house. I hate driving. I don't think I can express that enough. I absolutely hate driving. So yeah, so I ended up going back like 2 to 3 times, but that was about it. So fast forward back to Zadarian's mom. So I'm like, Mom, I want to go to church. She takes me to her church. But that night, so I went that Sunday with her, and then she was telling me that they have like Bible studies. I think it was on Tuesday night. No, it was on Wednesday. I lied. It was a Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what day it was, because now they switched the days. So we ended up going to her church, but at the time they said something happened and the church was closed, so they couldn't. And man, I'm telling you, God, he just found a way. Oh man, God is so good. But God, look. Yes, Lord. But God, what? God works in mysterious ways, man. God works in mysterious ways. But I say all this to say that we ended up going to another church, because she was like, well, you're already here, I'll just drive you. I said, okay, that's fine. So she drives me to this church in Winter Haven. Y'all know where I'm going with this. So, I need to look for my package. Am I okay? So y'all know where I'm going with this. But I went with her, and we pull up to this church. It was kind of, from where we were, it wasn't too far, but I don't really remember how we got there. But all I know is we got there. And Mama, she from the city for real, so she don't need no GPS. Me, on the other hand, I'm not from the city. I'm from the big MIA. So for me, I was like, okay, we get to this church. It looks real cute. And mind you, I've been to Catholic church, Baptist church, any type of Haitian church you could think of. Like, especially the Baptist is a real big one. So I'm used to like a larger church. So we pull up to this real small church. I'm like, okay, this is cute. It looked real put together. We walk into the foyer. It was nice. I said, okay. And one thing about me, I'm not scared of the Lord. Okay, well, let me not say that. I'm not scared to praise or receive the Lord. Let me say that. So we get sitting in this church, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And essentially they start talking about, like, one thing about me, I'm gonna go down to the altar. It don't matter what church I'm at, I'm going to get prayed over, and I'm going down to the altar. It does not matter. So I ended up church is starting to end, and I go down to the altar, get prayed over. They put this oil. Mind you, I've only grew up like knowing what I know. So for me, like, holy oil is not something that, this is not something that I was used to. So like, holy oil is not something I ever knew. Now my aunt, she's Catholic, so I know what holy water is. I know what holy water is, but I've never really encountered or ever knew or had to deal with holy oil. So they put that, I'm like, what is that? What does that smell? Like, what is that? And fast forward, y'all see my last video, like, I love the smell of holy oil. Well, the holy oil that they gave me at that church. But yes, so they put it on me. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. So this is on that Wednesday night. So that Sunday, mind y'all know me and Linda be like this for real. So on that Sunday, I'm like, hey, Lee, like, we finna go to church. Because, of course, I'm finna bring my girl with me. Like, we finna go to church. I'm not playing with you. She's like, okay, fine. Like I said, we ain't scared of God. So we finna go to church. So I go to Zadarian's mom's church. And I'm in there. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is calm. But I'm still hungry. Like, when I was first starting out after that thing that shook me when I was 14, I started, like, it was COVID era, so the only thing you could do is go online. So at first I started with Sarah Jake Roberts. At that time, she was on fire, and she's still on fire. And no, like, shade to her or anything like that. Like, I was like, yes, like, she is doing what it needs to be done. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And I feel like anyone who's first starting out, like, in the faith, Sarah Jake Roberts is your person to go. Not only, like, I feel like she's more of a motivational speaker, in my opinion. Like, that's just how I feel about her. But I definitely think, like, she can definitely get a message across, for sure. So, started with Sarah Jake Roberts. Then I moved on to Jackie Hill Perry. Jackie Hill Perry, I'm sorry, I don't know. I can't say I can't get into her, but I don't see a lot of videos unless it's, like, a conference or her rapping or doing something. So, like, I just be like, okay. Then I got into Brenda Palmer. Brenda Palmer is, like, she's like the auntie that's gonna keep it real with you. Like, she's the auntie who's gonna be like, now you know you was dead wrong for doing that. And I'm like, okay, auntie, you right. You right, I can't even say nothing. So that's just, like, Brenda Palmer gonna give it to you straight. Then from Brenda Palmer, I started to dive into Priscilla Shirer. So when I started, like, I don't know, she speaks so funny. So does Jackie Hill Perry. Like, I don't know what it is. But Priscilla, like, even when you watch, like, The Forge, 10 out of 10 movie, it's on Netflix, go watch it. Or The War Room, like, she just speaks like that. And I don't know, for a while I was trying to get into her, but then I couldn't find enough of her videos. Same thing with Jackie Hill Perry. So then I switched over and I got into Jerry Flowers. 10 out of 10. He can relay a message and is word based, for sure. Like, he articulates the word into a translation that we can understand. So does Brenda Palmer. So for sure, those are the two people. Like, those are the people I watch, like Jerry Flowers or Philip Mitchell, I think his name is, the 2819 Church. He is very aggressive, but like he said, like, people, some pastors nowadays, they're just being too soft with the word. Like, we are in end times, okay? We are in end times, so it's not the time to, like, try to like spoon feed the word to you. And I understand, like, okay, well, if you never knew God, then how you finna just jump from never knowing God to jumping into, like, full on, like, oh yes, I love Jesus. I mean, granted, it can happen like that quick, suddenly, but for some people it doesn't happen like that. Like, even in the word it says, like, it's like a baby. You're not gonna feed a baby a steak. You know, you have to start with small foods, soft foods, and then get to solids, and then you can work your way up. So that's kind of like how it was, like, what was going on for me as far as, like, that COVID time. So fast forward back again to Zarian's mom's church, and I'm in the church and I'm trying to focus, y'all. I'm really trying to focus, but, like, this pastor, I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, when is he finna stop talking, bro? Like, I hate pastors that just, like, I could have got what you said 10 minutes ago, or in 10 minutes you just keep repeating yourself, or you keep just going on and on and on and on. It's just nonsense. And I'm like, why? Like, I'm just too alert for me to just keep hearing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Like, so I look at Linda. She looked at me. I said, you ready to go? She said, girl, you the one driving. I said, you right. I told her, I said, there's another church that when I went with Zadarian's mom to the church in Winter Haven, I was sitting in the church and I grabbed my phone and I pinned the location because I knew I was going to come back. So on that Sunday, I said, there's a church that I think we should try. And she was like, well, girl, you driving? I'm ready to go too. Like, I said, what? Ain't nothing but words. So we go to the parking lot. We go get in our car and I drive to the illustrious Greater Works Ministry, Winter Haven. I don't think y'all get it. I love that church. I love the church. I love the community. I love the leaders. Like, everything about that church is just everything. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, let me finish the stories before I, like, ramble. I can talk about the church all day. So the day that we walk in, I don't even remember the day. All I remember was the day, the atmosphere. So the day that we go in, it happened to be like Memorial Sunday. So, like, for the lost ones, everyone was wearing black and yellow or had, like, chains of the people that they lost. And the atmosphere, it was so packed. Like, I had goosebumps. Me and Linda were so, like, there. Like, we were so present. And mind you, we've never experienced, like, any type of Pentecostal anything. So this church that we're going to, we're just like, wow, this is so like powerful. So it was just like, oh my goodness. And Mom, don't take offense to this, right? Because you know you can't do better if you don't know better, like Rod said, to my grave. That it cost you. Okay, anyways, yes, your whole life, I've been dying to live and living to die. What? Hello? But my mom, I believe that God speaks to me through visions and dreams. So when I was really young, I used to have nightmares every single night. I had a nightmare every single night, and to be honest, the nightmares are so vivid. I still remember what the nightmare looks like today. Like, I still know what it looks like. And to be honest, I believe that the vision is the end of times. Like that dream that I keep having reoccurring. I don't have nightmares anymore, but that nightmare played over for years and years and years. So I still know exactly what it looks like. So for me, my mom told me to stop praying aloud. My mom told me, like, the devil can hear you as well. So you need to stop praying aloud and just pray in your mind. And boy, oh boy, that's how she set me up. She set me up right there, y'all. She set me up. Because from there, I struggle even now with praying aloud or praying for somebody out loud. Like, because I was so equipped of praying in my mind, I never, you know how they say there's life and death in the tongue? Like, that was my biggest enemy, my tongue. Like, I could not speak aloud. So when I got to this church, I'm getting to this church and they laying hands on people crying and praying, and it's like you could not tell me that God wasn't in the midst. Now, they always say when 2 and 3 gather, God will be in the midst of the people. But man, that feeling, oh man, it was so good. It was such a great thing. So now I'm just gonna tell you what I learned from this church, and then I'm gonna go on and on because I love that church. So what I learned from this church is you have to speak a thing, right? Now, and my pastor says that all the time. You have to speak a thing. Like, if you want something to come to pass, you need to speak it into the atmosphere. Like, they call it manifestation, but it's more than manifestation. It's more like you're saying a word out into that spirit realm. You're sowing that seed in the spirit realm. You're sowing that seed and you're watering it constantly. You know, if I say that I'm going to get 100 subscribers by the end of this year, it's like I'm gonna get that, and I'm not only am I going to get it, but I am going to put a plan in place for me to get there. Because it's like I can be like, God, turn off the light right now. God, turn off the light right now. God, turn off the light right now. And he's like, well, go get up and turn it off. Like, there's things that we can do on our own power, but sometimes you need to pull on the greatest power to get something done, right? So for me, it was like I'm going to this church and I'm going every Sunday. Like, once I found this church, there was no going back. Like, there was no like, oh, let's skip a Sunday. No, we're in there every single day, okay? So I'm in there every single day. Well, every single day. I'm there on Sundays and Wednesdays because they have midweek manna. And I'm just like learning so much from this church. Like, I'm learning that you need to pray. You need to seek wise counsel. Not only do you need to pray, you need to fast. Not only do you need to fast, you need to read your word. Like, it's more than religion. Like, they've never really said like, oh, well, this is a church for Pentecostals, or this is a church for Seventh-day Adventists, or this is a church for the one that starts with a P. Like, it's a church where you come and you practice relation, not religion. Let me say it again. Relation, not religion. Like, and that's a lot of things that people don't understand. Like, everyone just thinks, oh, I have to pick a religion for God to tell me, okay, well, this is the one that's right and this is the one that's wrong. Relation, not religion. That's the bottom line. So at this church, they teach you how to pray. They teach you how to fast. They teach you how to like get in the word for you to be connected to God. Like, I have never, to be honest, like my brother be like, girl, both of my brothers, they just swear that I've been on fire for God my entire life. And to be honest, that's true, but I never really knew who God was. I never knew his character until after the fact. you know, until I kind of strayed away a little bit and got back into it. That's when I really realized who God was in my life. Now, they say in the word, well, it says in the word that it's Jesus, or I think it's Jesus talking to his, or no, I think it might be God. Y'all know all three of them are the same for real. But he's talking about his sheep. He's talking about how his sheep need to be able to hear his voice and be able to be like, oh, well, that is my master. Or maybe, no, that might not be who they say they is. And that spoke so profoundly to me, because there's a lot of times, like, because I feel like God speaks to me through dreams and visions, it's hard to decipher who's speaking to me, because the devil can manipulate as well. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, is this of God or is this not of God? And sometimes, not even sometimes, all the time, you need to know God's character to decipher. Well, if this voice in my head is telling me, oh, well, maybe I should throw this weight on my foot, why would God want me to hurt myself? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, you have to know God's character. You have to know who he is in your life and what he's done for you to understand that all of God, all of him. Now, mind you, he said he a jealous God, so he said you better watch out, don't piss him off, right? Now, God is great, okay? God is a great man, a great spirit, a great being, but don't play with him, okay? Now, he used to be a certified crash out. Y'all go read that Old Testament now. He was quick with quickness. You're done. You're done. You're done. Actually, give me that. You're done. So don't get it twisted. That man can snap his fingers, you'll be gone. But because he sent his son to die for us, there are certain things that he will not do. Make sense? Like, you can say, he says, like, knock on the door. Knock on the door, he gonna answer. But it's like, how do I explain this? He at the door. He waiting on you. When you gonna walk in? You know? So for me, that's kind of like what it was. Like, this church is teaching me so much about myself that I didn't understand. Like, another thing that I was talking, like, when I was in a dorm, I had the hardest time, like, staying in my word. Like, I was not praying. And I just refused to pray. Like, I literally could not open a Bible. Like, mind you, I normally keep my Bible with me, but I had went to go get a new Bible. I told y'all, I got an NLT Bible, but normally I have my iPad, and I bring my notebook, right? Because, now let me open my notebook so y'all don't think I'm lying, right? Like, my notebook has notes of scriptures, like this notebook, because I feel like sometimes when I'm reading in the word and I bring out my iPad, I feel like it's almost like I'm canceling out intimacy between me and God. And that might just be psychological, but something about having the paper book in a piece of paper instead of doing it on my iPad, it feels more intimate to me. So I like to make sure that I have either one. Like, but if I'm on the go, I'd rather carry my tablet so I don't lose my Bible and it's heavy. But if I'm at home, I'm gonna do it with my paper, on my paper book. But I say all this to say, when I was in the dorm, like, you couldn't tell me anything, bro. I was crying, like, every day. Like, I felt like such a bad Christian. Like, and it's not like I was out drinking, smoking, like, popping that cooch. It was not like I was doing anything like that. But it was like, I felt like a bad Christian. Like, I know I need to pray, but I don't want to. And I know I need to pray, but I can't. And it was like, bro, what's wrong with me? And I remember I called Bernice, and I'm like, Bern. He's like, Nasha, how are you doing, girl? I'm like, Bern, I'm not good. He's like, what's wrong? Like, Bern, I start crying. I'm like, Bern, I can't pray. I can't move. I can't think. Like, Bern, I'm sick to the stomach. Like, sick in the brain, everything. He was like, girl, you're going through spiritual warfare. I'm like, what's that? Spiritual warfare is an attack from the enemy trying to attack your spiritual. That's basically what it is. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I fix it? He said, do it even though you don't want to. You don't want to pray? Do it. You don't want to open your Bible? Do it. You don't want to go to church? Do it. And it's easier said than done, of course, but it's more about discipline and tolerance. Like, it's more about, like, the fact that you don't want to do it. It's like, that's the time where you need to do it the most. And I know, I sound like a broken record, because when it was me, I'm like, bruh, I'm hearing you, but I'm not trying to hear that. Like, I don't want to do it. I can't. And he's like, nah, I should do it anyways. Do it anyways. Even, like, and I was talking to my little brother about this. Like, at the times where I literally feel like I cannot pray, I get on my knees and I just sit there. And it's about intention. If I'm in a space where my brain is just working overtime and I can't think, I can't move, I can't figure out what to do next, I'm gonna sit in God's presence, because that's intentionally showing him that I'm trying to get closer to you, even if I don't have words to say. Like, it says in the Bible, like, God already knows what you need what you need before you ask. And sometimes that moaning, that groaning, that heart wrenching, feel it in the bottom of your stomach, like, where y'all know when y'all cry, but y'all give that good cry where you ain't got nothing else to give. Like, those cries only God hears. When you're trying to muffle your mouth so that people don't hear you, God heard you. He said every one of your tears are counted because he cares. And I am not that type of person to, like, make a video like this, but, like, y'all, this church, these people, Pastor Deborah Ann Hallman and Bishop Joe Hallman, I'm sorry. Like, those people are such, like, pillars in my life. And Auntie Karen, like, mind you, we be kind of iffy sometimes, but those people have impacted my life in so many ways that I can express. Like, before I was leaving to come to college, now mind you, when I was speaking about the dorm, that was my first semester here. When I came during the summer, that's when I got back into the church. When I left, I wrote this paper and I gave it to Auntie Karen, and I said, please give this to Pastor. I wrote a letter to my pastor telling her I need to stay connected to this church even after I leave. Like, I don't think y'all understand. I've been looking for a church. Like, I have yet to find any church like this in my life. And I know they'd be like, well, you shouldn't feel like you need to stay connected to a church to feel like you're connected to God. And you're absolutely right about that. But this church taught me the fundamental blueprint of how to keep that relationship with God even after the fact that I leave this church. And that speaks wonders to me, because you'll get in a church and you feel like you're not going to be able to speak to these people ever again just because you left the church. And to be honest, I understand that it's a fear, because even for me, it's like, I want to learn from my pastor. I want to learn from my bishop. They have the wise counsel, the wisdom that will get me so far in my spiritual journey with God. Like, I refuse to be separated from that. Mind you, I'm young, but, you know, and you always learn from older people. You learn from little kids. Like, even little kids be wise. Like, these little kids be trying to tell you stuff and you don't be listening to them because you think they're too small. But for me, like, I needed to stay connected. So I made sure that I did that. And I was like, okay, well, she ain't never gonna text me back, or because it was like a week after and I didn't hear anything anyway. And she calls me randomly one night when I'm crying. And she's like, hey, baby, how are you? I'm like, oh, my gosh. Hi, Pastor. Because it literally flashed on my phone that it was Pastor, which was crazy because her number is not saved because I didn't have her number at the time. And she was like, well, you call me anytime you need. And, oh, man, I don't think y'all understand. And to be honest, like, y'all know when people be like, you will never understand until it happens to you. That's just how I feel. I can't tell you specifically when was the day that the switch happened for me. It just happened. I think it was a gradual thing. So now I'm here. Like, I understand the thoughts of depression. I understand the thoughts of anxiety. Like, I understand the thought of not wanting to be here anymore. I understand. I trust me. I understand. I understand. But it doesn't matter. You know that one song that be like, as long as I'm still breathing, that song, Worship. And something, man, I went to this church recently and they start singing the song and I keep singing like, no matter how I'm feeling, I will always worship you. Like, what? No matter how I'm feeling, like, y'all. And literally this happened to me like 2 days ago. I've been feeling this like heaviness in my chest. Like, it's once you kind of get, one thing that the devil does, he does things in cycles. And I learned this by Jerry Flowers. He does a thing in cycles. Hold on, y'all. It's in here. Hold on. Yeah, I'll be writing somewhere. Hold on. Cycles. Is it cheat codes? Ever understand wisdom? Oh, I wrote a lot, didn't I? Or maybe I just watch it. Oh my gosh. I don't remember if I wrote it. It might be cheat codes, but essentially Jerry is talking about how the devil will always try to do something in a cycle. He will get you in a place that he already got you. For people who are struggling with lust, he knows that if you go be with this one girl or if you be with this one guy, that you gonna fall. So he gonna send that text in the middle of the night like, hey, you up? What you doing? Cycle. Or when you fall back into lust around your ovulation period, it's a cycle. Like, one thing that he does is he does something continuous when he knows that you're weak, right? And I felt like sometimes I try to keep track of it, but something that Sheena Livingston says, she's an artist and she's also the daughter of Deborah Ann Hammond. And she says, oh man, it spoke so profoundly to me. She was like, the devil done messed around and messed up. He done allowed me to get back in my powerhouse. He done let me get back in the church. And now I'm gonna get my power back. Like, anytime I go home, I always make sure that I go home enough to go to church and then go back to North Carolina. Like, I refuse. Like, this church, man, this church has taught me so much about myself, and so, like, it taught me so much about just people in general and how much we lack actual understanding when it comes to relations with God. Like, it's not about religion, it's about relation. When you're feeling like you don't want to do something, do it. When you feel like God is not present. I was watching a Just Different podcast, and they said, one thing that people need to understand is that God does not talk during tests. Hello? Like, and that spoke to me so deeply, because it's that time where you feel where you feel that God is not around. He's working, he's doing something behind the scenes. And another thing that Bernice taught me is that you can't base your relationship off how you feel. You need to base your relationship off facts. If the word says that God cares for you, but you feel that God is not working, you feel like God doesn't care, they always say, like, science, the reason why faith is not a thing, or the reason why they believe that God is not a thing, is because they have no evidence, right? And I'm like, okay, I get it, y'all. I've done papers on this, but it's like, I understand what you're saying, but your evidence and my evidence are not the same. Because when I was crying, that deep, wrenching cry, like I lost something or somebody, and God showed up for me, or when I didn't know how I was gonna do something and God showed up, like, you couldn't sit here and argue with me about God not being real and God being real. Like, to be honest, you can say whatever you want to say. At the end of the day, we're gonna agree to disagree. The bottom line, the black and white, is either you believe in God or you don't. We can see, because people are so close-minded when it comes to that. Like, I was talking to somebody who's an atheist, or whatever he said it was. And he was like, I don't want to speak with you because I don't want you to feel like, I don't want to change your perspective on God. And like I told him, you couldn't shake my faith, hon. I got too far to where I am right now in my level of faith with God that you couldn't shake me even if you tried. Like, like I said, the bottom line is either you believe or you don't. That's just how it is. But I just encourage any person who is in college who doesn't know who God is. It's like, make the time, do the research, and just do it. Like, especially when spiritual warfare is hitting, where you don't want to pray, you don't want to do anything, do it anyway. Like, God is going to make a way for you. And like I said, when you can't see the end of the road, God is going to make a way. Like, I can't express it enough. Like, I just really can't. But that's just really how my walk went. Like, I feel like everyone's walk is going to be different. Because I know a lot of people have testimonies. Like, Destiny's testimony, like my best friend's testimony, is so like, oh man, when she told it to me, I was so like in awe. But like, for me, I feel like I don't have a testimony because I knew God all my life. I guess my testimony is I knew God all my life, but I didn't know God until I left him. That's all I can think of, to be honest. I just feel like God just works in mysterious ways, y'all. That's all I got. That's all I got, for real. And I can sit here and talk to y'all about that church that I love so much. But Greater Works Ministry has changed my life for the better. Like, I have never experienced such love, such guidance, and such leadership in my entire life. I can't explain it to you, y'all. There's such a great amount of people. So anyone who lives in the Kissimmee, Point Siena, Winter Haven, Lakeland, Bartow area, try the church. And to be honest, it's not for everyone. I understand. It's not for anyone. A lot of that stuff that we have going on, like Destiny says she would never go, but she gonna go anyway because I'm gonna force her, because who are you? But I understand it's not for everyone. It's for me though. It's for Linda. But it's for me though. So say all this to say that Bishop and Mama, if y'all watching, I love y'all. But it's just, yeah, I don't know, y'all. I'm just so burnt out right now. Because this school stuff is driving me insane. Everything is a routine, a cycle. And like we said, spiritual warfare, when it comes to be, do it anyway. When you don't feel like it, do it anyway. Do it anyway, do it anyway, do it anyway. But yeah, y'all, we about to go. Where my phone at? We about to go. Every time I call his name, gee, what the heck? Every time I call his name. We gotta go, y'all. Anyways, see y'all in the next video. Hope y'all enjoyed this one. If y'all had, like, for the people who watch this and y'all find some, write your testimony in the comments. Like, if y'all have something that y'all need to say, just say it in the comments. Like, I will respond back. Like, share your testimony, share what you gotta say, and we'll chop it up. We'll chop it up, y'all. We'll chop it up. These people about to piss me off. We'll see you on the next one.